Hi, I'm attorney Renee Osipov with Chelle Law, and we assist parents, guardians, and students who are having issues surrounding 504 plans. In this video specifically, I'm addressing how students can succeed with a 504 plan. So in this video, I'm going to kind of walk you through the best ways that students can succeed with a 504 plan and what do they need specifically in order for that to happen. So first, let's talk about a 504 plan. 504 plans are codified in federal statutes, not state statutes. Now, states may have additional requirements, but federal states the actual requirements, what a student needs to have in order to qualify and what type of accommodations can be granted. So first, let's kind of go through that. So the federal statutes define eligibility for a 504 plan accommodations as any type of physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life event, which would be being in the school itself, not just in the classroom. So my first tip for students to succeed is for parents and the 504 plan team to think beyond just the general education classroom. That's important, of course, how exams are going to be administered, how teachers are going to interact, how instruction is going to be handled. All of that is very important, and we'll get to that later. But in order for a student to really succeed and have the best chance possible, we need to think beyond the general education classroom. So what are we leaving out? Transitions between classrooms. So if this student has multiple classrooms, maybe at the middle school or junior high or high school level, accommodations could be granted for that transition. Maybe they're allowed additional time. If they have any type of a locker or a backpack, accommodations could be made for that so that the transition is as easy as possible. So again, we're thinking about outside the classroom. That's tip number one for success. So transition. Also, extracurricular activities, after school, clubs, sports, accommodations can be made for that too. Coming to and from school, transportation, buses. The biggest one I think that gets overlooked, especially if there's any type of sensory issues and any type of disciplinary problems in the past, are accommodations surrounding the cafeteria and lunchtime. Cafeteria during lunchtime can be one of the most stimulating or overstimulating environments for a child. So you have to think it's the smells of the food, it's the crowds of children, it's the sounds, everything can just be so overstimulating. So you want to think about your child in every different type of situation throughout the school day, not just inside the general education classroom. So that's definitely tip one for success. Think about the whole school day from the time they leave your house, go to school, and the time that they come back. You want to fully think about all of that. Set them up for success. Number two, my second tip for success. The accommodations need to be written very clearly and very detailed, but straightforward. Meaning that if anybody looks at that 504 plan within that school, so we're talking substitute teachers, aides, admin staff, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, maybe potentially, really anyone within the school who comes in and is employed by the school can look at that 504 plan and know exactly how to administer it. So an example I like to give is if a substitute teacher comes in, they look at the 504 plan and it says that the student is given extended time for an exam. Well, an exam happens that day. How long is that student allowed? It says extended period of time. So is that the whole day? Is that double? Is that triple the time of the other students? That definitely can be disruptive. And for not only the student, but for other people in the class, it can be confusing for the substitute. So in order for the 504 plan to be implemented and really help the student as much as possible, accommodations need to be written so that if anyone in the school looks at that 504 plan, they know exactly how to comply with those accommodations. So that's tip two. Tip three is a little bit more complicated, and I can kind of use the example of anxiety. So if a child has an anxiety disorder, specifically around exams, there are certain general accommodations that the school will just imply. So extended time, maybe they're allowed to go into a different area to take the exam, maybe staff is available to sit next to that student. Those are all just very general. But I think in order for the student to really succeed with a 504 plan, you need to think about the root of that impairment. So this one would be anxiety. What actually about that exam is giving the student anxiety? Is it the environment? They're overstimulated by multiple people in the classroom? Okay, well then they need to be placed outside of the classroom whenever they're given their exam. Maybe it's reading the exam. Okay, so we've got the root cause there. So they don't really need to be moved out of the classroom. Maybe they just need an extended time, like double or triple. And we have that detailed in the 504 plan. Here's another one, is if maybe there's anxiety about reading the exam. Now, the student does not have a learning disability for reading. It's just reading within that environment causes them anxiety. So maybe the exam should be read to that student. They don't need extra time. They may or may not need a different environment. They just need staff members to go ahead and read that exam to them. That's the root, the actual cause of the impairment. So if you dig a little bit deeper, you can really get accommodations that are unique to the student, which are really tailored to meet their specific needs and let them succeed. Another example for maybe physical impairments, something to remember, is if a student, let's say they need a wheelchair to move around. Okay, so let's think about that. Do they maybe need to be put in a specific area within the classroom, maybe towards the front, so that they are able to come in and out of the classroom freely? So another example, you want it tailored to meet their exact needs. Don't settle for those blanket sort of accommodations where it's like extra time or staff will help or assist. Get detailed, get to the root of the impairment so that the student can succeed. And then I think my fourth tip for students succeeding with a 504 plan is that the way that the accommodations are implemented are in a way that it's not disruptive to other students in the class, and that no attention is drawn to that student. So let me give an example of that. You don't want the student to be singled out so that, the whole class knows that this child has some type of impairment. You don't want them singled out. So what are some ways that we can stop that so the student can succeed? There's not stress and anxiety about going to school every day. So one way, and I'm going to use the example of anxiety again. If a child needs to leave, maybe they feel an anxiety attack or overstimulated, something where they need to leave the classroom. Instead of raising their hand and asking the teacher, I feel like I'm going to have an anxiety attack, may I leave the classroom? That's singling that student out, and we don't want that. And it's going to cause a lot of stress and anxiety for them. So a better way for success would be some type of cue to the teacher. So a lot of ways this happens is there's either a code word that the student can use, a hand signal, maybe they put 2 fingers up, 1 finger up, a thumbs up, something like that, or a thumbs down. They cue the teacher in that they need that accommodation. Again, maybe stress, maybe an anxiety attack, something like that, and they need to leave the classroom. They cue the teacher in. No one else knows what's going on. The teacher understands it, and they let the student leave. And so that way, there's no singling out of your child and their accommodations. That's really going to help them succeed and give them the best sort of success that they can. So if you have any additional questions, you can check out our website. Our contact information is in the description below. We're happy to set up a consultation with myself. We can walk through the 504 plan process, what accommodations you need. If you have a 504 plan, feel free to send it to us, and we're happy to walk through the plan with you, explain it to you, and if we feel like maybe some things needed change, we are definitely able to give you that input.